Wow. Okay, so today's review is for the long-awaited, well, I guess you could say long-awaited because, well, it took us a year to wait for this, even though the first season was just last year, I know, but still. Today's review is for the long-awaited second season of The Mandalorian, starring Pedro Pascal, Timothy Olyphant, Katie Sackhoff, Gina Carano, Carl Weathers, Rosario Dawson, Tamora Morrison, Ming-Na Wen, Bill Burr, and Giancarlo Esposito, and takes place sometime after Season 1, where Din Djarin is tasked by his covert's armorer to bring the child he saved in Season 1 to a Jedi Knight. But while he's on his various adventures, a very much still alive Moff Gideon is planning his revenge. Now, as you guys know from last year, I loved Season 1 of The Mandalorian. And that first season was one of the greatest, most thrilling, most riveting starts to a Star Wars series ever. Like, seriously, that show did a great job with new characters alone. It had beautiful cinematography, amazing connections to the various eras of the Star Wars universe, an absolutely just amazing story, and, of course, it introduced Baby Yoda, whom I will talk more about in this review later. And much like every other Star Wars fan, I was really hyped for what we could see in Season 2. Mostly for what questions would be answered from Season 1, but also because it meant more of Din and Baby Yoda. And, oh my god, it might seem a bit predictable of me to say this, but I think Season 2 of The Mandalorian tops the first season in nearly every way. Season 2 of The Mandalorian is just a really damn amazing second season to a show, and really shows us how this show really is the best of the Disney-era Star Wars content so far. It just manages to so perfectly expand on that first season and make it so much more grand and epic. It gives us tons of answers to questions we had about Season 1, and also gives us tons of big surprises, as well as made us ask new questions for the future of the series. One of the best things about this second season is how well it furthers Din Djarin's development as a character and a father figure to the child, mostly because of how protective he has become of him. Throughout this whole season, you see Din just try to take such great care of him, and you just get to see how pure and heartfelt their relationship has become. What further shows that is that scene in the 7th episode, The Believer, where Din, at the terminal on Morak, he removes his helmet and shows his face, so the terminal can scan it to give him access to find Gideon's ship. It truly showed how much he really cared for the child, so much that he was willing to break the creed to increase his chances. Yes, he has been told that apparently his particular covert is apparently a sort of cult called the Children of the Watch, which I guess could relate to the Death Watch? I don't know. Hopefully we'll get more answers to that in season 3 if the armorer shows up again. But yeah, I'm pretty sure that even if Din didn't know about that, heck, it's not even entirely clear if he does believe it. Like, maybe he doesn't actually believe what Bo said. Or who knows, maybe he's skeptical about it. But he probably still would have revealed his face just to make sure that he got to the kid. But seriously, Din's quest in this season was just so riveting, and it was made so much better by Pedro Pascal's amazing performance. He is such an incredible actor, and I mean that in every sense of the word. I also loved how they truly showed Moff Gideon as a truly worthy bad guy this season. I mean, I loved Moff Gideon already in Season 1, but in this season, they made Moff Gideon the legit Gus Fring of the Star Wars franchise. And I know that sounds funny because, yeah, they both share the same actor, but it's true. Moff Gideon is one of those villains that you just really want to see our heroes take down. Like, come on. In that 6th episode, The Tragedy, when he destroyed the Razor Crest, had Dark Troopers kidnap the child, taunted him with the Darksaber at his weakest state, and had him shot with a stun gun, and also in that last part of the final episode where he almost fucking shot him! Like, seriously, Moff Gideon is such a great villain that I really want to see him get killed in the future. Definitely one of the best Star Wars villains in recent years since Kylo Ren. Like, Giancarlo Esposito gave this role his absolute all. He was amazing. Also, let's talk about Baby Yoda in this season. Or, as we should now be calling him, Grogu. Yes, we find out his real name. It's revealed in the 5th episode by Ahsoka that his name is Grogu, and that he was actually around during the days of the Clone Wars. He lived on the Jedi Temple of Coruscant, and when Order 66 happened, someone, it's not specified who, rescued him and hid him away. And I just found this entire story being told by Ahsoka to be so interesting. Because, again, we don't know who it was that rescued him. And you know what? Honestly, I wouldn't mind if we didn't get the answer to who rescued him at all. Because sometimes it really is more interesting to just speculate about stuff like that. Like how when Padme died in Revenge of the Sith, a lot of us found it pretty stupid because, well, it seemed like she just died because she was sad or some stupid shit like that. But there is actually a good theory about how it wasn't actually that reason, and how it might have actually been because Palpatine was draining her life essence and transferring it to Darth Vader. And theories like that are actually definitely really much more cool to think about when you don't actually have the exact answer. And my theory on who rescued Grogu is basically the same as most other fans right now. Like, maybe it was Jocasta Nu. That theory would probably make the most sense because she was still alive after Order 66 until she was eventually hunted down and killed. But yeah, Grogu's backstory is really compelling, and I'm just so glad that we actually have an official name for the child. But also, yeah, he's just as adorable as he was in Season 1. Like in Episode 4, The Siege, when he steals that kid's cookies, and he still has them later, and he throws up after eating too many. Yeah, it's gross, but it's never one of those cute little aw moments from the kid. Another thing that this newest season does that the first season definitely didn't was bring in more familiar characters that we know of from the previous Star Wars movies and shows. Like Cobb Vanth from the Aftermath books, played by Timothy Olyphant, Bo-Katan, played in live action by Katie Sackhoff, and of course, the amazing inclusion of Rosario Dawson as Ahsoka Tano. Yeah, they brought Ahsoka into live action, and they did such an amazing job at bringing her to life. Rosario Dawson gave such an amazing performance as a post-Endor Ahsoka. She reminds me so much of the wise, mature Ahsoka I know from Clone Wars 7 and Rebels. And I am so happy that we are actually getting a series based around her after this, which I am just so excited to see. She just really deserves it. Also, yes, let's talk about Boba Fett, played in this season by Tamura Morrison, who of course played Jango Fett in Attack of the Clones. By the way, speaking of Boba Fett, yeah, I'm aware that Jeremy Bulloch, the man who originally performed the physical Boba Fett in Empire, yeah, he passed away recently. Rest in peace, Jeremy Bulloch. You'll be missed. But anyways, yes, they did what the Expanded Universe did. They brought Boba Fett back from the dead. Now, I'm sure a lot of us can agree that Boba Fett kind of was the weakest character in the original trilogy. Sure, a lot of fans in those days thought he was awesome, mostly just because of how cool that armor looked. But he never really did anything until Return of the Jedi, where he was killed off in a pretty lame fashion. And the prequel era gave him a whole new origin story, where he was actually one of many clones bred for the clone army. Yeah, I gotta say, I really didn't like how George just decided to retcon Boba Fett as just one of many clones of someone like Jango Fett. It just seemed like an excuse just to include Boba Fett, and it just felt unnecessary. I kinda wish they left Boba Fett alone in that first place. But I gotta say, I loved how they used Boba Fett in this show. They took a classic character who is often seen as overrated by fans, and they made him awesome again. Like, they actually made him deserving of being called awesome. Tamura Morrison plays Boba Fett with such a stoic and badass attitude that I'm actually glad they brought him back. they totally pulled a Darth Maul on us. And yeah, I can't wait to see whatever that Book of Boba Fett thing is that's coming next year. But yeah, for real, Boba Fett was a total badass in this show. Now, I could also go on to talk about which of the 4 episodes of this season are my new favorite of the series, like episodes 1, The Marshal, episode 3, The Heiress, episode 5, The Jedi, and episode 8, The Rescue. But honestly, I just want to talk about The Rescue right now because of how amazing it just absolutely was. It's of course the episode where Din, Cara, and Fennec and Bo-Katan and Casca board Moff Gideon's ship to rescue Grogu from his imprisonment. This entire episode was just absolutely amazing, and it might be my new favorite episode of the whole series so far. Everything from that epic fight between Din and Gideon with the Darksaber and that spear that Ahsoka gave him in episode 5, to the intense moments with the Dark Troopers, to all the moments of the rest of the team fighting their way to get to the bridge. All of that was awesome and is definitely the kind of Star Wars I expect from a show like this. But it was the end of the episode that just had me so like, I'm serious. When the ending happened, my heart just raced, and I cried, because it was just so bittersweet. It's where all of our heroes are preparing for a big fight with the Dark Troopers. The Dark Troopers are breaking their way in, and at first, we could tell they were in some deep shit. But then, an X-Wing shows up, one X-Wing, and it's revealed that it's Luke Skywalker and R2-D2. He comes in and whoops all the asses of every single Dark Trooper in sight as Ludwig Göransson's amazing music plays. And he enters the room, and it's a digital effect on an actor's face. Now, it actually was just recently confirmed that technically it is Mark Hamill in this scene. Sort of. He actually did the dubbing for Luke. He voiced him. But physically, he was played by 2 stuntmen, Max Lloyd-Jones and Matt Rugetti. And yeah, the effect is pretty obvious. It looks a little better when it's not in a close-up, but they do close-ups on his face, and yeah, it just looks off. But, of course, that doesn't make this portrayal of Luke bad at all. I mean, they got his body movements, his skills, and his personality very spot on. Very much like how Luke was in Return of the Jedi, or Battlefront 2 Story Mode. But the sad part is that it's of course revealed that he is the Jedi that Grogu sought out on Tython. And Luke has come to take him to his Jedi Academy. And we get a heartbreaking scene of Din saying his goodbyes to Grogu. And I definitely cried when Din unmasked himself to Grogu right before letting Luke take him, just so he could see his dad's real face for the first time, letting him look upon him with his own eyes. And it ends with the door closing as Luke and R2 leave with Grogu. And it just had me so sad. It made me cry so much. It was just so sad seeing Din and Grogu separate. But you know what the worst part about this is? It also makes me afraid. Because, as we all know, in around 30 or so years from this, Ben Solo, Kylo Ren, eventually turns against Luke, and his Jedi Temple gets destroyed. And after watching this episode, it actually makes me scared, because I really hope it does not mean that Grogu was still there during those days, and that he dies in that temple destruction. If that is confirmed that he does, I will be so mad and so upset. I really hope at that time, Grogu is not at the temple, and that he is still alive. He might not be a baby anymore. He might have grown a bit more mature in those years. But still, the thing is, I don't want Grogu to die. Who does? Seriously, just please. Dave Filoni, Kathleen Kennedy, and Jon Favreau. All of you, please. At least one of you even. Please. Please tell me that you will not imply Grogu's death. Please. Please. But yes, The Mandalorian Season 2 was just amazing. It was a fantastic follow-up to the first season of what is, in my opinion, the best canon Star Wars series of all time. I am not kidding when I say that The Mandalorian is probably the greatest Star Wars thing to ever happen since The Empire Strikes Back. I'm serious. This show is just perfect, especially because of how it made our lives in this current year so much more worth getting through. Like, seriously, this year has been terrible. Just awful. Absolutely horrible. So much so that it took TV shows to get us through it without being depressed. And The Mandalorian, I gotta say, is one that is the most thankful for that with its second season. And I just gotta give serious props to every single person involved. From Jon Favreau to Dave Filoni to Kathleen Kennedy to Ludwig Göransson to Pedro Pascal to every single actor, every single crew member, every single writer, director that was involved in this. Thank you so much. I hope you could possibly find a good enough time next year to start production on the third season, for I will be patient. I'm going to give Season 2 of The Mandalorian a 10 out of 10. And I just really hope that in some capacity, maybe in one of the 2 upcoming spin-off shows of the series, or maybe, of course, in Season 3, possibly we could see Grogu again. Especially since we still need to find out about what exactly those clone tanks were on Nevarro. Were they Snokes? Like, first test subjects to create Snoke? Or are they clones of Palpatine, which sets up his return in Tross? And if it's neither, then what are they? Like, yeah, I hope we can find more about that in these coming shows, which I'm very excited for. But also, yeah, I just want to make sure that Grogu will be okay. Well, I hope you guys enjoyed this review. I'll see you next time, and may the Force be with you. Peace out.